So yeah, good morning everyone. Welcome back. We haven't seen you for a long time. So last time we saw was I think 2 months ago. So that's a seminar or lecture on macroeconomics and health. I'm Mr. Grevenbrock, just to remind you. And as I'm talking about reminders, just a quick reminder what this seminar is about. So we are talking about macroeconomics and health. We are all macroeconomists. We know macroeconomic models are micro-founded usually, so we really model how individuals behave, and that has been done for a long time now. But what has been ignored is this health aspect, right? We know, okay, health is important, and in this seminar we're going to understand why health is important. And we try to understand, okay, in the recent literature, how this aspect, health, has been integrated in these macroeconomic huge computational models, which we usually do without health. So questions we're going to ask here are, okay, how is health affecting inequalities in income, wealth, but also life expectancies? We know life expectancy from economic historians has developed over time, and one aspect is health. And we also know that health, and I think Anna is sort of talking about it later, we have inequalities in life expectancies, and we're going to understand that later. And then one question is, okay, how do we measure it from an empirical exercise first? Some people are going to talk about this, and later also how to incorporate that in our standard macro models. And then also, I think Bernard is talking about this, is, okay, what kind of policies are affecting these inequalities in health, and inequalities of health driving through income and wealth.
So maybe I missed the first class. Could you explain to me what you mean by health? Because health can be...
Yeah, health definitely is a multi-dimensional object in a way. In macroeconomics it's a number, as you will see later. But yeah, health is, broadly speaking, health can be life expectancy. So there are different aspects of health. So how long people survive, but it's also like in what kind of state are people surviving. So are they surviving in a good health state or a bad health state? And that's part of the thing we're going to talk about in the seminar as well. How do we measure health? What actually is health? So I hope after the seminar you're going to know what we actually mean by that. So part of the answer will be given by one of the presentations, actually one of the first ones.
Thank you.
So that's what we're going to do about. So as I want to start now, because many people have dropped out and now we are just a nice group, we're going to have a few sessions. I would like to get to know each other. And as I guess we have a very diverse background, or maybe we don't, so that's why I would ask you to introduce yourself very quickly. Maybe we just start here, maybe let us just know what your background is, how you like economics so far, why you opted for this class. So,
Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Bernardo, I'm half Italian, half Spanish, and I am an economist by training, but now I'm slowly moving towards political science. I feel some attraction there, so probably I'll end up being a political economist. And health, as you said, is it's becoming as we all know, is very important, and also is gaining a lot of attention in consultancies, in institutions, in academia, and so on. So I think it's something interesting, and also that could help me to find a job afterwards.
Fantastic. Yeah. Maybe I can take this as a perfect example of how you introduce yourself, and you take as given that everyone has introduced him or herself. So thank you very much. Yeah, as you've seen, we have a very diverse group here. So many people all of you have studied economics, but we have a diverse background. So Spanish and Italian in one person, but also we have people from Turkey and from France and Germany. And so that's going to be interesting as well, because we're going to have an international comparison of health as well. And we're going to see, okay, health is not the same across countries, and also policies are different across countries. We're going to learn from it, okay, why are systems different, and what can we learn? So I want to be very specific about the assignments, because given that we are all here and many people move from abroad to Italy now to do his master's, I want to be a bit precise about also what I require from you or what I expect you to do. So what I do today is the assignment of the paper, so you all handed in your preferences 1 to 3, and we're gonna distribute the papers. And then the block seminar, so when everyone is presenting, just a reminder, it's also on your handout, it's 9 to 11th of April. And then, as you not only have to hand in the paper, or give the presentation, you also hand in a paper, it's due the 11th of April at 12 night sharp. So I know some people of you might be working until late. So that's the assignment of the paper. So some people didn't show up apparently, but they should show up in 2 weeks when the seminar is due. Here the first 2 papers are regarding the measurement. That's pointing to your point, actually what is health, and that's how we go forward. So we start with a more descriptive analysis of what health actually is, and then the next 2 papers are actually talking about models, how you do incorporate health in macroeconomic models. And then these papers are getting a bit more specific about certain policies affecting health and health inequalities, and how these health inequalities have feedback effects to income and wealth inequalities. So these 2 focus a bit more on an international comparison, and these are a bit more focusing on Canada and Germany. So that are what the presentations are about. That's what I expect from you. So I know that's always very different in every institution, but here I expect you to have 30 minutes presentations. That should be about 15 slides. As I will hand out later to you, also hand out how to do a good presentation. And one, for instance, here is as a rule of thumb, I also apply it as 2 minutes per slide. So that's how I came up with 15 slides for 30 minutes. But there are more tips and tricks on this handout later. What I expect you to do is summarize the paper and give the intuition provided in these papers, right? And do it with your own words. I know some of these papers are very technical, but what's important here is to provide the economic intuition of these papers. So, but more on that, on how to design a presentation, is written down on this PDF document. So part of the seminar is also about learning how to give a presentation. And the papers then are single authored, so some of the presentations can be done in groups. But the papers are single authored. There I expect you to write about 15 pages. It's plus minus 1. It's not important here, but that's the number here, 15. And there again, I want you to reiterate on your thoughts you have given in the presentation, and also what's important here, really provides intuition. It's not important to copy paste the formulas you have in these papers. The papers are computational, very complex papers. So don't just rewrite the formulas. Anyone can do it. Really write down for a person with a basic knowledge of economics what these papers are about. So a reader of an economist, the weekly economist, should be able to understand your seminar's paper. So really provide intuition. And then what's also important, really make cross-references to the other papers that were given in the class. So make sure that you are aware of the big picture, as we like to say, of the whole aspect. So if you do the descriptive part, for instance, in your presentations, you're more focusing on measurement. Make sure you make a reference to these papers that more focus on the modeling aspects, and thus showing that okay, how your paper is used also in other parts of the literature. So that's really giving you the extra points then, no? So if you are able to show that you have understood the cross linkages between these papers. So grading between presentation and paper will be 50-50, but also I like to have an active class presentation. There you can get extra points. So don't just sit here silently, just also participate, make comments to other presentations, really ask questions, so there are no stupid questions really. So if you don't understand something, just ask. And that's basically it. So I'm looking forward to the presentations upcoming in 2 weeks. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email. My email address is also on the handout I sent you via email. So I'm looking forward to the presentations. Thank you very much.
Okay, so what would you like feedback
Yeah, so specifically whether it's kind of, so I know it's not a standard introduction to teaching because what I do is very specific, I feel, so I decided to give you like this introductory class, and there I would like to know whether it's well understood what's expected and whether this kind of who is who section makes sense. I mean, I had to laugh a bit, you were laughing a bit, maybe it's okay, it's a bit particular here, but whether you think it's a good tool to get to know each other and yeah, to what kind of class size is good for that. So if you're more than 10 people, is it still a good thing to do, or?
Okay, so one question has to do with introducing ourselves and whether or not we thought that was useful and helpful.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And the other one was more about whether we understood this, but we can just write our answer whether or not we understood.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
but also like the way I spoke and etc.
Right. So because we're trying to focus on the interactivity, right? That was the expectation today. So any responses to how you felt about that? We had one example. The introduction, who is who?
Yes, I liked it. You enjoyed it? Oh, yes, I enjoyed it. for a few minutes. No, I think it was a good idea, and also, actually, even before you asked this, you mentioned my name and her name when you were talking about when you had policies and inequality and so on. So I found that was a good way to engage people. So on that I think it worked. But I have some criticism. Should I?
About that?
No.
Is it something you can write down?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Other comments about this?
No, I think it's a very good idea, especially if you have a small group, because you will create a better contact with students, so they feel more comfortable. I think so. I think it's very good to ask about who they are.
Yeah, I think especially because it ties into what you're going to talk about. So it's not just so who are you and where you're from, but if you made the point of saying like, well, this will be what we talk about as well. Like how is health perceived? How does it influence different? So I think it was a really good idea and it made a lot of sense. I think I was laughing at some point because I wasn't sure whether you were trying to go on for so long until that he would stop you to sort of move on to the next. Because first I was like, this is my background, but then you're like, yes, and then I think my job application, which was great.
I thought it was a test.
For me, I was getting irritated.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, what's going on here? He's talking and talking and talking.
Don't criticize.
The instructor's not saying anything, and what am I learning from this? So, I mean, in my view, I would help. It would have helped if he'd said 3 things.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other thing I would have done is I would have said, introduce yourself to the person next to you, and that person is going to introduce. Because if you really want this to be a seminar, you want people to start talking to each other.
Okay.
So it's easy for us to turn off while the person is talking to the instructor. But if you and I are talking, and then I know I'm going to have to introduce you.
But
How do you do that if you don't know the other person?
Because you'll sit there in pairs and we'll exchange, and then we'll stop. Okay, I'm going to introduce Anna. Anna told me blah, blah, blah. So what you're doing is you're helping people to develop relationships. If it's a seminar, you want that to happen.
Yeah.
But you also are highlighting it's important to pay attention, to listen, and that we all have a contribution. So it might be, what do you think you can contribute to this course? You know, what's your name? Why are you interested in this course? And what strength do you bring? What potential contribution can you see yourself giving? So I might say, well, I'm a healthcare worker, so I know that from the face, from the front, right? And I'm interested in how we link individual experience with blah, blah.
But about this train, I think it's a really good idea to kind of split this introduction, and first in this one-to-one thing, but I'm always afraid of asking for strength.
No, maybe you can define, it will force you to define exactly what you want.
Have like what I want to know.
Three or four
And
things.
have 3 things on the board.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
remind everybody.
Like where are you from and
Why? And
why are you
the
taking this
background.
course and what would you like to take home for it? I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
But
that's good.
something that's really helping people understand why are people here, and how can I draw on them,
Yeah.
on their past experience and expertise.
Yeah, true.
I've had to do this, like myself. I was asked to introduce someone else several times in seminars, and I've also done it with groups. And sometimes I had the impression that this is especially good when when they're younger. Sometimes it's quite nice because they're quite shy still and they don't know each other. But when they're older, it can sometimes be a bit like they're kind of a bit silly.
Yeah.
That's why it has to be really short.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So, because part of what you're saying is it links to the participation and to the presentation. So what they're having the experience of doing is making a very brief presentation about something they didn't know in literature. Did you have something to add?
No.
Okay. Great, so thank you very much.